Hello everyone. Welcome to the Granblue Fantasy Relink Beginner's Guide. So we're going to cover everything from the beginning of the game in order to get to the mid game. So you can just get there as soon as possible. To give you a very short summary of this whole entire video, it's going to be just to play the game, alright? But there are going to be some things that I cover in depth so that you kind of get an understanding as to like, okay, do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? The short answer is no. If you're in the early game, that's everything up until the credits roll, right? The first credits. Then you're in early game, okay? Trust me when I say it gets kind of crazy. See my level 78 and 72s. 44 is where the mid game starts, and around like 80 is where like the mid game kind of like ends, right? The mid game's much shorter, right? It's like probably like a couple hours, maybe like a play session or two. So to get there, right, I'm just gonna talk about the most important things to do, what you want to min max and everything. So yeah, right. One of the things is when you should accrue characters with your crewmate cards. So when you first get your crewmate cards, right, you probably just want to get the character that you start off with that you want to play, right? So I'll show you guys the difference between getting a character at different parts of the game, right? So character Percival here, I got him at like level 20 at the first beginning part, right? They come with about 25% of their whole entire skill tree unlocked, right? Him and Siegfried. Vayne and Lancelot, I got them at like level 35. That's around like chapter 8 is when it upgrades to 25, and then after chapter 8 it goes straight to 35. And yeah, so up until then, it's probably not a good time to use your cards because chapter 8 and 9 as well as the final chapter are very close to like the beginning of the mid game. So personally, I'd recommend if you want to get any characters past your main, maybe your second main, right? Because you get about like as many like crew cards as there are characters, right? You probably just want to hold off until like the beginning of mid game, right? So after you finish that first quest, when the like credits roll, characters get leveled up to 45. And after you finish the mid game, the final boss of the mid game, you get straight to 60. So 60 is where end game starts, or where the characters will be leveled for end game. There's a lot of quality of life changes that really speed up the process of leveling and everything. It is not as big or as grindy, but there's definitely a bit of like work that you got to do. So personally, I'd recommend holding off until like your crew cards level like 45. So that's just about the start of the mid game to get the rest of the characters, right? And as you play through anyways, you might as well just save the last couple of ones so you just get characters like level 60. So we're gonna go ahead and see what these guys look like at level 60.
Did you miss us, Captain?
I did. Very so pretty. Alright, so this is what your character will look like at level 45. This is what your characters will look like at level 35, right? Or like 35 to 45, as you see there, 50 to 53%. 35 is around like this level, 45 is around this level, and 60 is this level. So as you see, these are, so mastery points become very expensive, I'll tell you that, right? So that's the reason why I'm telling you to hold off, because they come with a large majority of their like skill tree and stuff unlocked. So this ultimately just saves you farming, right? Because look at how expensive these points get, man. Like to get to the end, to the bottom of the skill tree, right? Because you unlock it at the beginning of end game. That's 7,800 points. Now you get more points in mid game, right? I assume you get even more in end game. I just got there, but yeah, it takes a bit. The weapons as well also come leveled up to a higher extent, so you can level up this. So yeah, ultimately I would recommend just holding off for the rest of the characters until level 60. Just get your core team, right? Probably around like as soon as you get to the mid game, that's when you want to get your characters, because they'll come with the least amount of farming needed to be useful for you, because the less points you have to spend on them, the better, respectfully. You know, because it takes a lot. If you're trying to level up a team of characters, especially if you're playing a multiplayer, if you're not the host, you're only getting character experience for like that one character, so it may be a little bit of like a difficulty, if that makes sense. Because the mid-game bosses get pretty high, like the highest level is like level 90. So yeah, I would recommend personally to hold off until the beginning of mid-game to get the large majority of the characters you want to use for a team, right? And just get the characters you want to use, probably around that point, just level 20 or 25 or so. So yeah, that's all for this section. Let's go on to the next one. All right, let's talk about some weapons. So weapons are going to be like the stat stick, right? I am in the end game right now, so please ignore the amount of money that I have and the level of my characters. We're going to use the main character for this instance because his weapons are the most understandable, like, so I don't spoil you guys to what other weapons and what they look like and stuff, right? So the main character's weapons, right? He has one that he gets forged, that's the Rondel. The Traveler's Sword, which something happens to it, but you get to forge it later. And the Sword of Eos, the weapon that he gets for that part of the story, right? So we are going to talk about the Sword of Eos in this example, but as you see right here, the weapon types at the bottom, so Durandal is a stunner type weapon, the Traveler's Sword is defender type weapon, all starter weapons are defender types, and the Ascension weapon, Sword of Eos, all of these are classifications of, is just kind of like what trait they have. This becomes important later, right, for reasons that I'll explain when we get to the mid-game guide, but long story short, the type of weapon is important if you want to like build a character a certain way, but worry about that when you get there, right? So the level of your weapon is going to be an important factor because it just kind of gives you more stats, right? And as you see later, it gives you ascension levels and stuff, and trait levels and stuff. So why you want to kind of like stop around like 30 to 50 and level it up to 50, or 50 to 75 and level it up to 60 is because, as you see here, 75 to 100, while you can potentially get this during the mid game or early game, it's not really worth it because the amount of investment doesn't really get you that much power. It's not going to be like a game changer. If your character isn't strong enough, then it's probably because you don't have their mastery trees and stuff leveled up. So for the most part, just level them up to 60. If you're going from 50 to 75, and just level them up to 50. 50 is a really good stopping point. 60 is a really good stopping point. The amount of money that you need and everything below that is just, it's understandably like cheap, right? Because champion merits and refineum are the two most rare things that you'll get in the early game. So you kind of want to reserve them, right, for like your main party of 4, to make sure that everything is kind of like spread out evenly amongst them, so that they can kind of like support you and your main DPS character, right? So forging weapons, every character gets 1 weapon to forge. Just forge their weapon, right? If you want to switch off of them, like their main weapon, just go to that weapon. It should be okay. Doesn't really matter too much because your damage is kind of like bottlenecked in the first section of the story, right? Your damage really starts spiking when you get to mid-game. Trust me when I tell you, it's a very big change. So yeah, we're gonna go to Sigils now. So for Sigils, the max level you can get during the early game is 3. You're just gonna find some just kind of like out the box, like probably like level 4 or level 3. Level them up to just about like level 5, level 4. This is pretty much okay. It just levels up the trait by 1, right? You can't really get the traits like super high, so I just recommend just sticking with like level 4. For the most part, leveling up your traits won't help you that much either when it comes to damage in the early game, because obviously you don't have that much room to kind of like flex your muscles and flex your wings and get your brains all cocking and tickling and whatever, right? So just kind of worry about it as it comes, but keep your sigils around level 4. Don't waste materials unless you have them, right? But for the most part, you can't really do too much. You don't really put too much into it, right? If that makes sense. So that is everything about weapons. Just play the game, use what the game gives you, and worry about that after you beat the game. Now, the most important part, we're talking about the gear now. So, like I said, right, you have about 4 sigils to play around with the main character. I believe every other character only has 3. Just kind of like mess around with stuff, see what you want, right? Like just go attack power 3. As you see right here, the difference between attack power 4 or 5, not that much. You can actually see the difference with other stuff if you go to trait details, right? You can see which each level will give you an increasing amount, right? So if you equip like another level, as you see right there, attack 5 plus 1, because I have 1 sigil, right? So it actually increases, it adds together and increases my total attack by whatever the trait level is. So the trait level, just think of them as additional like passive skills, right? So as you see right there, it's level 6, so attack power is just plus 14. The max level, as you see right there on the top right and at the bottom right here, is level 50. Other skills have different maxes. Looks like stat skills have a max of 50, and other skills have a max of, it just kind of depends, right? So this trait right here, Crabby Resonance, is from the unique stuff that you get from like the trait, from like the quest that gives you more levels to this trait in particular, right? So since I have this trait like level 5, put it on real quick. As you guys see, when you rescue the max level of them, or the max of them, there's 45 in total, you get 1,000 attack. It goes from 500 to 1,000. So the increases are very big. Jesus Christ. Because there are a lot of them to find, right? This is probably a very important skill to level up to 45. It's probably just a free attack boost. So yeah, right? With your gear, the most important thing to worry about is going to be what weapon you want for your team, right? So since, like, for example, this is my party, right? I want to try to have stuff that kind of like complements each other. So like with Yugen, Rosetta, and Catalina. Catalina's a nice support character that helps out with healing. She also helps out with buffing because that's just how she works, right? And Yugen helps out with just simply doing damage. I also gave him a debilitation skill that drops the enemy's defense by 15% and inflicts them with a poison. 20% actually, and inflicts them with a poison, right? It's also a dark type attack if you care about the elements, but the elements don't really matter too much either, right? Just build with whatever you need. You get more skills through the mastery tree, of course, right? Every character has up to 8 except the captain, who has 10, right? If you guys count right here, they're I think he's even more than 10. Let's count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So far there's 12, and I think there's even more that the captain gets because they're just spells. So sigil builds will change as you go through the mid game, right? Where you start getting the sigils that you need and stuff like that. So every character has unique sigils that they can get, but worry about building your characters completely and thoroughly first. Just level up your characters, and eventually you will deal with that when you come across it. So don't fret too much. What you should be aiming for is what helps your character team out. But you will get the ability to get higher tiered sigils. It's kind of just up to luck. But the mid game is where you should start being able to do fun stuff with your friends, since the early game kind of just limits you a little bit, sadly. So yeah, besides all of that, just do your Fate episodes, get your stats like boosts and everything, and your characters will be doing as much damage as they can, right? And for the most part, that is everything that I have to cover in this guide today. Again, just to go over the weapons, right? Because I leveled up my Swordbreaker to level 50 in the demonstration that you guys didn't get to see. You see right here, must be at max level 150. You get additional passives, right? Depending on the weapon that you're leveling up, right? This is for every weapon you can forge, right? Since we only count about 6 here, we can assume there's only 6 weapons, but this still helps. I think there is way more, but if there is or isn't, does not really matter. You do the same regardless of if there's 6 weapons or like 20. You know what I mean? They probably just did this to like hide how many weapons you get to make, right? Because I know that there are endgame weapons that you can make from bosses and stuff like that. So yeah, we will worry about that when we get to it. That being said, I want to kind of leave you guys to it. Use this guide as like a means to just kind of like refer to as you're playing through the early game. Have fun, okay? That's the most important thing. Character levels, you'll get them just by playing the story, right? Like I said, the levels don't really matter too much depending on the team composition. All characters get the same amount of experience just by being in the party in general, and being out of the party does not matter. Peace out, everybody. Enjoy Relink. We have waited 8 years for this moment, and there is so much more to do. And I will catch you guys in the next video. So peace out. Peace out, peace out, peace out. Drink water, take care of yourselves, dream the best dreams. All right? We're here. Skyfarers, beware. We are skyfaring today. All right? But peace out, everybody. Catch you guys in the next upload.